This lesson is on angle relationships. So we have two parallel lines, which I am going to outline in blue here, cut by what's called a transversal. So a line that cuts through two parallel lines like this is called the transversal. Okay, so when parallel lines are cut by a transversal, 8 different angles are formed. And so if you look over at the right hand side, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different angles that are formed. An angle labeled A is congruent to any other angle labeled A. An angle labeled B is congruent to any other angle labeled B. An angle labeled A is supplementary to any angle labeled B. So you should be filling in these 3 blanks. Okay, now, all right, so you have just filled in the top part there, okay? Remember, supplementary means that the angles add up to 180 degrees. So maybe we should add that in here. So supplementary means equals 180 degrees. And congruent means equal to each other. Okay, so types of angle pairs. All right, so if we look at this angle here and this angle here, those angles are called corresponding angles. They're in the same relative position and they are congruent, which means they are equal to each other. So if this angle A was 50 degrees, then this angle would be 50 degrees also. Those are called corresponding angles. Kind of looks like this angle right here just dropped down. Okay, that's how you know they're the same. Okay, all right, so now let's go down a little bit further. Alternate, let's see here, exterior angles would be like these 2 angles right here. They are on opposite sides of the transversal. Remember, this is the transversal. So you've got one on the left and one on the right, and they are outside the parallel lines. So if this is helpful to you, this right here would be inside the parallel lines, see, in the middle. And since they are outside the parallel lines, they are exterior and alternate exterior angles. Okay. Actually, it might have been a little easier to understand if I had done this. See how they're outside the parallel lines like that? So on the next one where we're looking at the angles being inside the parallel lines, I think that you could understand that this would be alternate interior, these 2 angles right here. They're on alternate sides, opposite sides of the transversal, and they are inside the parallel lines, and they are congruent angles. Remember, congruent angles mean they are equal to each other. All right, and then this last pair that we're looking at are called vertical angles. So like these 2 angles here, they're opposite angles, meaning they're across from each other, formed by intersecting lines. So if you look at this line and this line, they intersect. When they intersect, they create those opposite angles there. So they're called vertical angles. And remember, vertical angles are congruent. Okay, that is some vocabulary you're going to just have to kind of work on there, on those types of angles. Interior angles. angles in the triangle. The sum, which means to add, of the 3 interior angles in any triangle will add up to 180 degrees. So for example, inside this triangle we have angle A. I'm going to do 2 for angle B and 3 little marks for angle C, since we don't really know how many degrees they are. Those all add up to 180 degrees. All right, those are the interior angles. The exterior angle, so if we're looking at this angle right here, which is formed by this right here, okay, that's an exterior angle. It's outside of the triangle. Any exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of its 2 remote interior angles. So angle D there is equal to angle B plus angle C. So for example, if we did not know angle D, but we knew that angle B was 100 degrees and angle C was 40, then 100 plus 40 would be 140, which means angle D would be 140 degrees. All right, if 2 triangles have 2 pairs of corresponding angles that are congruent, the triangles are similar. Okay, so we would not necessarily say that they're the same, because I think you can tell that one looks a little larger than the other. But see that we have an 80 and a 32, we have an 80 and a 32, which means since all 3 angles are supposed to add up to 180 in a triangle, if we did 80 plus 32, that gives us 112. And they all have to add up to 180, so we do 180 minus 112. We get 68. So these angles are 68 degrees. So if 2 of the angles are the same, like in this first triangle we have 80 and 32 and 80 and 32, then the third angle has to be the same. And if the angles are all the same, that means they're similar. See this little squiggle here? That means similar. Okay? It does not necessarily mean that they are congruent, because you could have 2 different sized triangles and they still have the same 3-degree angles inside. The measurements can be the same degrees, and you could just have longer sides. Okay, so that is kind of a little quick look at angle relationships. I do want to go back to this little warm-up exercise, which for you wouldn't really be a warm-up because this is new to you, unless you've already learned this. If you're in another class using it to review, you may have already learned it. And let's look at number 2. And I know that you don't have this written down anywhere, and it might just be something that you watch. If you want to pause it and write this problem down on your notes page, that's perfectly fine. It says Gloria is comparing 2 triangles. In triangle ABC, she knows that angle A measures 32 degrees and angle B measures 60 degrees. Triangle DEF, the second triangle, is shown below. Okay, so we don't even see a ABC, so I think that we should go ahead and draw ourselves a little triangle, and we're going to label it A, B, C. And A is 32 degrees, so I'm going to put my 32 degrees there. B is 60 degrees. Okay, now based on what we know about 2 triangles, the question says, are the triangles similar? Well, they're similar if 2 of their angles are the same. So we've got 32 and 32, that's right, but we are going to need to figure out what this other angle C is, or this one. If angle C is 38, then we'd have two that match up. So let's see here. We've got 60 plus 32. That would equal what? 92. And we know all of them have to add up to 180. So we have 180 minus 92. What would that be? $88. So that means this angle right here is 88 degrees. Well, we only have one matching angle. We don't have two. So the answer to this would be no. And then you could say that we do not have two pairs of congruent angles. All right, I do want to kind of look at a few other examples, and attached in your folder is this little cut and paste activity here, which I think would be awesome. It would be very helpful, but it is not for a grade. So if it is something that you are able to print out, or even if you can't print it out, if you can just pull it up and practice the problems, it might be good for you. Actually, I know it will be good for you. And then, of course, you have your activity to do through Schoology. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's see. I'm going to start with, let's see, number 3. So basically, the directions tell me to find the value of x, okay, and then the missing angle. So the missing angle is the one with the star. Well, first of all, they tell us that this angle right here is 10x, and this angle right here is 7x plus 33. Well, we have to use the vocabulary that we've learned. So this is where it gets a little bit involved, okay? So we've got our two parallel lines here, okay, cut by our transversal. Now remember, when that transversal cuts the parallel lines, it creates a bunch of angles, okay? So like if I wanted to put a dot, we could 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's all the angles there, okay? But I'm going to take those out so we don't get confused. Now, we have to think about what this angle and this angle are called. What is their relationship? Well, they are on opposite sides of the transversal, which means they're alternate, and they are inside the parallel line. So they are alternate interior angles. That's going to be helpful. And alternate interior angles are equal to each other. They're congruent. Now this is pretty easy just to sketch on your notes. If you're taking notes and you don't have a printer, is to just sketch that little diagram there and work this out. You also can message me through Schoology or email me if you have any questions, and we can work together on any of these problems or the homework problems that you are given in Schoology. Okay, so since these are equal, we're going to first set up an equation. We're going to say that 10x is equal to 7x plus 33. So 10x is equal to 7x plus 33. Well, we know that we do not want to have variables on both sides. So I'm going to subtract my 7x on both sides. So that leaves me with 3x equals 33. And then I will divide by 3 on both sides. This is just basic solving an equation. And x equals 11. So the value of x is 11. The missing angle, which is the one with the star. Okay, so where the star is in this diagram, that is 10x. Well, we just found out that x is 11. So 10 times 11 would be 110. So the missing angle is 110 degrees. And so basically that's what you're going to be working on. If you have a chance to print it off and do that. First, you have to identify the type of angle pair. Are they equal or are they supplementary? Okay. and then you set up your equation and solve. So probably the most challenging part is to determine if they're equal to each other, meaning you set the expressions equal to each other and solve, or if they add up to 180. Let me show you this, this pair over here. So in number 1, and if you need to pause it and copy down the diagram, you go ahead and do that. In this one right here, you can see the 2 parallel lines are right here, and you can see that the angles are inside the parallel lines, so they are interior, but they're on the same side. So they're not alternate interior, which would mean they would be equal to each other. And actually, you can kind of tell anyways, because this one is acute and this one is obtuse. So there's no way they're going to be equal to each other. They add up to 180. So if they're inside or outside, but they're on the same side, not alternate, then they are supplementary angles, which means they equal 180 degrees. So the way this one would get set up is we would take this expression plus this expression and set it equal to 180. So 2x plus 5 plus 5x equals 180 and solve. Well, we can combine like terms. 2x and 5x is 7x plus 5 equals 180. And it's just a basic 2-step equation now. Subtract 5 on both sides. So you get 7x equals 175. Divide by 7. 7 goes into 17 2 times. That's 14 with 3 left over. So it looks like that. X is 25. So X is 25. But then remember, you're supposed to be finding the missing angle. And number 1, the missing angle where the star is that 2x plus 5. So 2x plus 5 is the missing angle. We know X is 25. So we are going to replace that X with 25. So we're going to have 2 times 25 plus 5. Well, 2 times 25 is 50 plus 5 is 55. So that missing angle is 55 degrees. There are plenty more of these that you can do. Again, I attached it in the folder that you have access to in Schoology. If there's any of these that you want to do along with me, feel free to send me a message and we can do a video call and work through any of these together that you would like. Please make sure you're staying in contact with me and asking any questions that you have so that you can be successful. All right, I certainly miss you guys and I wish you the best this week on your work.